Hey everyone, thanks for watching the Get Your Mind Right podcast. I'm Brian Mendenhall, President CEO of Family First Life Central Division. Guys, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, or any other place you watch your podcast. Enjoy, guys. Thanks for watching. Thank you guys for joining us on the Get Your Mind Right podcast. Got a special guest today, Eric Schmidt, one of my favorite guys, crushing it, one of the newest integrity partners. Hey man, welcome, man. I appreciate you jumping on.
I love being on, Brian, and I love the title of the show, man. I love it.
So let's jump right into it, man. Congratulations on your integrity partnership. It's a huge deal. It has to feel amazing, right? Dude, talk to me a little bit about how that made you feel and what that accomplishment meant to you to be able to get that, to make that happen.
Yeah. So when I left the car business, Brian, after being in it for 23 years, my single, reason for doing so was I wasn't about the money. I was making good money in the car business. It was about being able to dictate my own schedule. I've been married for 24 years.
Congratulations.
We have a 16-year-old son, a 13-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old daughter. So I could have stayed in the car business financially and probably would have been, one of those 61% that were trying to figure it out week to week, paycheck to paycheck. But I would have missed so much of my children of growing up, right? So my son plays varsity lacrosse and basketball. My girls play competitive basketball, and they dance and they do plays. There's parent teacher conferences, there's birthday parties on the weekends, there's barbecues, and I miss all that stuff being in the retail automotive industry. As a general manager, general sales manager in the car business, you're either in the showroom or you're connected to your phone, procuring inventory, liquidating inventory, checking contracts in transit, hiring, firing, doing stuff in the BDC, hiring, ordering new vehicle. I mean, it was just nonstop, which is cool because I love working. I don't think there's any confusion that I love to work, but being outside of the house and not being in control of my own schedule for 70 hours plus a week, I just couldn't do it anymore. It was causing a lot of stress, as you could probably imagine, on my marriage, on my kids, and I'll be 50 here in about 5 weeks. So I was like, man, I got to, make some decisions here. So.
Wow. So you started with Family First. How many years ago, Eric?
I passed my exam in December of 18. I first had my license in 2008, but I only had that for a short period of time, Brian. I was in the car business, but that was in the housing crash and the real estate crash happened. So I kind of did it for a tiny, tiny bit. Never really got into it. I mean, insurance 13 years ago was totally different than it is now. And then so I repassed my exam in December of 18, and I did auto sales management full-time and this full-time until I was able to, ensure, within myself that this could replace automotive income for our family.
So do me a favor, Eric, because I understand what it's like to work 70, 80-hour weeks. I did that at LA Fitness. I was working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, like every week for 10 years straight. Okay. So talk to me a little bit, our brand new agent, about somebody might be watching this thinking like, hey, I'd like to try insurance. I'm working 80 hours a week. I want to come over and just do 40 here. That wasn't my experience. In the beginning, I had to sacrifice. It was like short-term pain for long-term gain. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. And I love talking about this. And I always talk about that 168 hours a week that we get, right, Brian? And we all get the same amount, and we all do a really horrible job managing and inventorying that time. So, and we really do. We really, really do. So, you sleep, for 40, 50 hours, a week, right? 45 hours you sleep in a week, you do the math, 7 times 7 is 42. Somewhere around there, right? So you're going to sleep 40, 45 hours. You're going to pray, meditate, work out for another 40, 45 hours a week. So 90 minus the 168, you still got 70, 80 hours left. So what are you really doing with that time? And that's enough time for 2 full-time jobs. So I just think that when you first get into this, I mean, you have money making time and you have non-money making time. So that money making time is from 7:30 a.m. Eastern till 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay. And I say Eastern because with telesales and Zoom and this crazy thing that we call the internet, I mean, there is no, I mean, you can pick up 3 hours when you start working east to west or west to east, whatever way the math works, right?
Yeah.
So um so those are the money making time, and then it doesn't shut off at 9 p.m. Eastern, and then you can obviously work west. You and I, we live on East Coast. um you can continue to go to 12 p.m. Eastern, and it's still 9 p.m. Pacific, and you can even go further. We got agents that work in clients that work out in Hawaii and Alaska,
Right. Yeah.
stuff like that. So I mean, there really are. I mean, when you do need, I mean, you can get freaky about this thing, but I mean, there's no excuses. But um, in the beginning, when you're trying to get way ahead on your cash flow, and I've always wanted to be in a position of yes, Brian. So yes to office, yes to staff, yes to marketing, yes to new lead ideas, lead campaigns, yes to travel, yes to, I mean, not travel to go to Punta Cana for the weekend, but work. I just always wanted to be in a position of yes when it came to everything, knowing that there was going to be some no's, right? So KNOWING, knowing that there was going to be some NOs that weren't going to make it, there was going to be some failures. But if I said yes to everything, Brian, I never had to worry about which ones, weren't going to be, did I not say yes? That could have been the one, that could have been the right thing, So when it comes to flying top talent into Connecticut so I can meet with them, when it talks to about bridging that gap from them leaving one industry to go into another industry and how I can help with that financially, so I always wanted to be in a yes position about everything. So the crazy thing about our business, Brian, is you don't have to. I mean, you can probably do this for 20 hours a week and you can replace a 200K W-2 income. But that's just enough to get you into trouble depending on where you live in America, right? So living in Connecticut, making 250, 300, that's just enough to get you into trouble. You got a mortgage, you got car payments, you got college, you got kids, you got Disney you want to go to every couple of years. I mean, that's just enough to get you into trouble, right? So, so I think putting those hours in, during money making time and during non-money making time, making sure that your social media looks correct. How many followers, how many, LinkedIn, I mean, there's so much, right? But, I think if you really and I think you look at, the Nick Gayalas and the Josh Williams and, the people that haven't been doing this a super long time, in the investment that they make, really can put them in a spot that, can change things generationally.
Let me ask you this, Eric. I think this is really important. Okay. What did the conversation sound like to your wife, to your kids when you were starting this? Because I understand this could be a lot of people's roadblocks, but if this conversation is held right, it'll catapult you into success and you'll be able to do what you really plan to do in the business. So what did your conversation sound like to your wife and kids when you started insurance?
So one of the things that I would encourage all the women and men on this call, if they're getting ready to have that conversation or never had that conversation and they need to have that conversation, is I'm the way that I communicated it to Carrie is she must have interpreted that I was going to be working from home. So I said, well, no. I said, I'm not going to be at the dealership, but I'm certainly not going to be working from home. So I think, so make sure that just because you're leaving a W-2 somewhere, you go 8 to 4, 9 to 5, whatever. If you work in the fitness industry and you're going to, the Edge or the LA Fitness or, wherever that, yes, you won't be there, but you're going to be out where the people are. Now, that was in 2000, whatever it was, Brian, 2009, 18. Right?
Oh,
no, 2019 okay. For me. Yeah, 2019. Sorry, I get lost. I'm getting old, so I'm getting lost on years.
I got
2019, right? So now things are a little bit different with Zoom and telesales, but again, in the beginning, I explained to my wife that I would probably sleep at home most nights, okay? And I would probably be home, most nights, but Other than that, I'm still going to probably be working or out of the house or not available for those 70 to 80 hours a week. It's just I'm not going to be 45 minutes away, and I was on the way the other side of the state here in Connecticut. So I think, but it was important. I think the children needed to know. I think, my wife needed to know that, hey, this is what it's going to look like. And this is the plan, talking with Eric Anthony and talking with Sean Mike. I'm like, this is what the plan looks like. If I put everything into this, for the next X amount of months, right? 18, 24, 36 months, that this will be the result. But if I vary from that, if I decide to go, if we decide to go on vacation or we do this or we do that, it's going to slow the process down. And I didn't want to slow it down, right? But I did let them know that if there was a play, a barbecue, a parent-teacher conference, a critical game, that I was going to be at it and I wasn't going to miss it. And I remember this distinctly. My kids were both in The Wizard of Oz. One was a lollipop kid and one was a munchkin or something like that. And the play was like from 1 to 4 on a Saturday. So so I took separate cars because I had appointments in the morning. So I met my wife and my kids there, and I was there. And then we all came out, and I was going to my car. They're like, "Well, Dad, where are you going?" I'm like, "Well, I was just here at the play for 3 hours. Now I got to make up for those 3 hours on the other side." I said, "Remember when we talked about this?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, Dad, I remember." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Just want to make sure we're on the same page." So, I always talk about Zach Twardowski when running business. You got to find a way to get those 120 appointments on your calendar, right? And that's by taking advantage of those 168 hours in a week that you get, that those 30 appointments a week or 120 appointments a month have to get on that calendar. Wherever they are, it doesn't make a difference, but they have to get on there. So, but that conversation you have to have, if you're younger and single and maybe you don't have dependents, it's going to be different. Your buddies aren't going to see you at the club. Your parents aren't going to see you at every Sunday, dinner. Okay. So whether it's, whether your significant other and children or your parents or grandparents, aunt, uncles, your buddies, your pals, I think everyone's got to know where your head's at with this deal.
Good. That's good. There has to be some things you're willing to give up to get things you never had, right? But I had the same conversation with my kids. I remember they were 8 years old and 1 at the time. And they're like, "You're going to work again?" Then I say, "You know what?" Because I didn't have the conversation in the very beginning, Eric. I didn't. I was just going hard, going hard, going hard. And then I talked to him and I'm like, "Hey, all these toys in this life that you're living, if you like these toys and you like these things, Daddy needs to go to work." And then they started being like, "Wait, you going to work? Oh, go blow it up. Go make it." I'm like, "Yeah, all right, cool." And that was exciting. All right, so look, the name of this is the Get Your Mind Right podcast, right? Everybody goes through crap, right? When you're going through a rough time, you're struggling, you might be going through something, what do you do to get to the other side? And what could you help people with? Like, give us some advice.
Yeah. So, we think, you hear Sean say all the time, but did you die? Right. But did you die? You know, so, there's a lot of other people that are in a much more challenging spot than we are. Right. Like here in New England, we have, if we put a snow predicted, I don't have to go to the dealership, which I had to go before. I can make those phone calls. I think, when it gets really tough, know that, that the next family is out there looking for help, wanting for help. There's someone that's looking to be saved in their current W-2 or their current agency where they're getting low comp. So I think getting in front of those clients that need our help, right? Going to that last appointment, making that phone, that other phone call. You hear Andrew Taylor talk about it all the time, 350 dials and 20 appointments. I mean, that's a must have. You have to do the 350 dials minimally and those 20 appointments for the next 2.5 days, depending on if it's a Monday, Thursday. Going for those 75 no's. You heard, that book, Go for No, right? That they talked about at conference, so that way there in your head, Brian, you're looking for 20 yeses and 75 nos or whatever it is, right? And once you get one of them, you're pretty much done. But you're probably never going to get to 75 nos before 20 yeses. That way, because there is a lot of psychology in this whole thing. We talk about it all the time. I would encourage. There's so much data. There's not data. There's so much content out there, Brian. Right. So when I first started, late 2018. I watched you talk about, you and your aunt Tina in the Call to Close series, sitting down with Bill and Jazz and Sasha and, and everyone in that, whoever's house that was, right? I would encourage people to go back to find those old videos, okay, of you and Frank Gufemia and Jamie, Dominique dialing, and what he was saying on the phone. I would encourage people to go back and find Mark Mead and stuff like that, because yes, all the great content's good and I wouldn't change it for anything. But I always send those older, YouTube clips out to people because I think that's what helped me. And if that's what helped me, maybe it could help someone else. But if you always can have a bad day, in this industry, and you can have a bad week. But if you stay consistent, and you buy your leads every Sunday, and you buy your leads every Wednesday, and you prepare your leads before 7:30 a.m. when the bell goes off to start dialing, and you do that consistently, 120 plus appointments a month, you'll never have a bad month. But you will have a bad day, and you will have a bad week, and you're going to get frustrated, and it's going to be confusing. But just don't let yourself get too emotionally high, and don't let yourself get too emotionally low. And I'll end this thought with this, Brian. I remember John Wedmore, he's a big numbers guy, right? He's all, former accountant, big numbers guy. So he did all the math. Like every time he dialed the phone, it had a value of X. And every time someone picked up, it had a value of X. And so every time you booked an appointment, it had a value, right? So every time you had an appointment, whether the person was there or not there, that had a value. So when you think of it that way, you're like, hey, I'm going to these appointments, and whether they're there or not, I'm making $400. They're like, well, how's that possible? It's the numbers. It's the numbers. So depending on what type of person you are, like that helped me a lot. Every time I dialed the phone, it was worth $2. Just a dial. Didn't matter if they picked up or didn't pick up. It was worth $2. So I think, so that helped me a lot.
It's good. So I loved everything you said. So Wetmore is one of my favorite. I love how he crunches the numbers, but I also like how you talked about perspective. Perspective is everything you said, but did you die? So no matter how bad it is, it's not that bad. You hear someone else's crap, you're like, can I please have my crap back? Hey man. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, if you guys go on to GoFundMe right now and type in the keyword funeral, you're going to get over 2 million results.
Jeez.
Right. So there are a lot of people out there that are in a real tough spot, right? Real tough spot. I was just listening to John Gavin's Integrity podcast, right? And just talking about, how when he was going to visit his daughters, his two daughters that were on the other side of the state, and he didn't have heat in his car, and he was putting socks on his hands to stay warm, and that there were some points where they just didn't have enough money to even to get food, So if you guys haven't listened to that John Gavin Integrity podcast, definitely, the Integrity Inspired podcast, I would definitely go listen to that. It's amazing. But I think, I don't know, Brian, I grew up in this business watching you and watching all the, Linda Lampasso, and like people like, well, who is that? Like, that's all we listen to. Right. That's who we listen to. You go on and see, people like, well, how do I help someone that's over 60 with mortgage protection? Well, type in John Wedmore selling, policies to older people, and it's all right there. And then when people watch that, it just snaps and it just makes sense.
This is good. This is good. Listen, out of respect to your time, I know you're extremely busy. I'm excited about what we're doing right now. We're hiring agents across the entire country. We're saving people. Right now, I have something called Operation Save Agents, right? And it's to try to educate people. There's people out there working at 30, 40, 50, 60, and even 70% when they should be here making the lion's share of what we actually, we pay to the agents. Some people are working 10 years, Eric, before they actually get a renewal. We get day one vested renewals here. Some people are out getting asked to sign a contract. There's no contracts here. Eric, there's even people out paying for training right now. They're paying somebody to train to say, hey, teach me how to sell so I can give you an override. That makes no sense. The training is free. We're hiring a bunch of people. If somebody saw you also and they said, hey, I like Eric, I want to work with Eric, how would they find you?
Easiest to find me is just go to fflnortheast.com. Type in Eric Schmidt, FFL, pretty much on any social platform, you're going to find me. Obviously, anybody can always call me direct, but I mean, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great spot to find me. I'm really easy to find on LinkedIn. The one challenge sometimes when people type in Eric Schmidt, Brian, that's also the original founder of Google. So he kind of dominates page one. I'm working on that, but I think you hit it right on the head, right? People that are paying for training, right? People that are and I came from the car business, so I didn't know, so when they said that our starting car comp is 90%, I was like, okay, sounds cool. I mean, I didn't know the difference, you know what I'm saying? But there's people out there that if they're working across the street. And we can do the exact same thing here. And like you hear Sean say, hey, if you're at McDonald's for $8 an hour and Burger King's hiring at 16, you might love the burgers, you might love the staff, but you're going over to Burger King for 16
You're going
bucks an
over.
hour.
Eric, bottom line, every agent out there eventually is going to be with our company if they know how to work a calculator. So that's where we're at. Dude, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Keep crushing it. Congratulations on integrity. And dude, I'll see you at the top.
Thank you. You too, bro. Appreciate you, man. More than you know.